So welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is going to be the last episode of my Chicago Marathon build that I did. Obviously there's not too many episodes in this, but I do look to build on it more in future series that I plan on doing with like the marathon specific. So I just thought I'd give you a little bit of a rundown of the week of the race, and then obviously we're a couple of weeks after now, so sort of what's been going on after, how the day went, and then my future goals as well. So we'll start with race week. I sort of cut my nutrition down a little bit in terms of overall intake. So reduced mainly protein and fats, tried to keep my carbs still quite high, but reduced the calorie intake. And that let me drop just a tiny bit more weight just before my carb load started. So carb load started on Thursday, which was the day that I flew out to Chicago. And I was having around 700 grams. So protein and fats were right down, literally just trying to get as many carbs as I can. There was sort of method of madness behind that. So it was sort of around that 7 to 9 grams of carbs per kilo of body weight was sort of what I was shooting for. I did that before at Manchester, and that seems to have worked really well for me. And then obviously before you know it, it was then race day. So got up at about 4 a.m. Had my normal like pre-race meal that I normally have, which is 2 bagels with peanut butter and jam on there. Had my electrolytes, and then I did a little jog to the start, which probably wasn't ideal, but a lot of road closures, and there was obviously like 50,000 people trying to get to the same spot, and it was probably about 6 a.m. So it was about a 2k jog, which was, I mean, it was about a 10-minute warm-up. I sort of looked at it as, so quite a nice chilled pace. And then basically just, I saw it as there, like I said, a bit of a warm-up, and then did some stretching and stuff like that when I got there. So it may have been a factor, I don't know. But I then got to the start line, waited there for quite a long time, probably about an hour. I waited there for, and then we got going. So the race actually went really well to start off with. I was holding my splits really well. A lot of people say when you're in Chicago to manually turn off your auto lapping, because of like going under really long underpasses or tunnels and stuff like that, and going through like all the different like building like bits of those buildings. It can muck up your GPS. So went purely off of just manual, just lapping it every time I hit a mile, and that worked really well. And yeah, that put me in quite a good position in terms of there was starting to be quite a big discrepancy on my watch anyway. So started not really looking at the total distance, just looking at my lap by lap pace against what I wanted to hold. And I actually held a little bit quicker, not by too much. So my overall goal was to get to under 2 hours, 50 minutes. But I sort of felt like I was in good enough shape to be able to hold 2:45 pace. And for the last few weeks of my training, I was able to hold 2:45 pace in sort of my marathon specific workouts, which for me was a 3:54 kilometer. So obviously going into it, I took the first 5 miles very sort of conservative. I was a little bit slower than that pace, just to make sure that I definitely was sort of feeling it on the day. I didn't want to go out too hot. So after sort of 5 miles, I did start to sort of speed up a little bit, and I ended up going through halfway in 1 hour 22:24, which is pretty much bang on that pace. And I got to about 34-ish K, still averaging a really good pace. And then there was a turn where it was literally like a complete U-turn. And as I sort of took like quite a sharp step to run around the corner, I just felt this massive cramp in my leg, in my hamstring. Went pretty quickly. I didn't have to stop, luckily. Just a few sort of like straight-legged strides. But then from there, it was sort of, I couldn't really push the pace much more. I did start to drop down a little bit, and then my calf started to cramp a little bit. I was taking on a lot of sodium, so I was having 3 of my little salt tabs that I have. I was having them every 30 minutes. So I was obviously having quite a lot of sodium. I had quite a lot of water on the course as well. So I'm not sure that it was like sweat loss, but it was quite a humid day. And it was quite hot as well. It was about 17, 18 degrees, I think. But I'm not sure if it was that or not, because obviously I am used to training in that sort of weather, having done this block through like the back end of summer. But yeah, so it was sort of a bit more of like a hobble towards the end, in the sense of every time I tried to push, I'd get hit with a cramp, and I'd have to try and slow it down to get rid of it. And then for the last sort of kilometre, I just decided to just run as fast as I could, just to get over the line and see how fast I could eventually get it done. And I managed to get in 2 hours, 48 minutes and 1 second. So yeah, massive PB, 7 minutes, 12 seconds to be exact. And yeah, I felt really happy with that. I was really happy. And obviously it gives me a lot of sort of information to take away from that experience that I had, and use to just keep building. Obviously, I'm relatively new in the sort of marathon training scene. Obviously, I've raced a few in the past, and I've done a few during like events like my Ironman and stuff. But obviously, since I started solely training for like marathons and stuff, this is like the second one that I've raced. So I did Manchester in April, did 2:55 there, and obviously now I've done 2:48 in Chicago. So still looking to build on it. I know I've got a long way to go, but obviously I'm really excited for that process. But yeah, so I then got to the finish line, got to the finish area, met my girlfriend that was there, and she told me that I didn't have a time and that she couldn't find my time. We then found out that this bib here, which is the bib that I raced in, actually didn't belong to me. It belonged to someone else, and they just made a little bit of a mistake, basically gave me the wrong bib at the expo. Obviously I didn't realise, and then when that person then went to get his bib, they deactivated my bib, gave him a new bib. So I basically did the whole race with a deactivated bib, so no one could track me. I got to the end, they weren't able to help on that day, and then a couple of days later I was able to get through to someone who was able to link this bib to my name, reactivate it, and luckily all of the information, like because I still ran over all the time gates, all the sort of data was still collected. They just had to activate it, and then all of it came back, luckily. So still have my time. A little bit of a stress, but nothing to stress about now. We've all got it, all the data, we've got the official time and stuff like that. So I will be able to use it to apply for some other marathons. Obviously my time will be able to get me into some of them, hopefully. So with the main one being New York next year is the one that I wanted to do. So hopefully my time is good enough to get into there for next year. But obviously we've got Rotterdam to look forward to before that. So yeah, this is obviously the end of season 2, essentially, if you like, of my marathon build. I think season 3 on here, it will be a lot better in terms of what I'm able to record, what I'm able to show, and the information I'm able to give to everyone. So I'm really looking forward to my next build. Like I said, I feel like I'm gaining so much knowledge throughout all these different builds, and I think it'll be a really exciting process for everyone to follow, and sort of see how I progress through that one as well. So what do I think went well? I think the block that I did a 12-week block. I averaged around 120-ish kilometers, which I think is about 70 or 75 miles. I'm not really too sure on the conversion, but somewhere around there. I averaged that for the whole block, or at least before the taper started. And I think that was really good. I think that built up a lot of aerobic capacity during my marathon. So right towards the end, when I did start to cramp, my heart rate did start to go down a little bit as well, and I wasn't really finding it too aerobically challenging. Like I said, it was morely just sort of my legs that were cramping, my legs that were sort of feeling it, as opposed to how I was feeling aerobically. So I know that I'm definitely aerobically fit to hold that pace and to be able to get over the line in sort of that 2:45 pace. It was just more of a physical component as opposed to like an aerobic component. And in addition to that, my fueling strategy, I think I really did nail that. I was really happy with that. Coming out of Manchester, I didn't have any sodium the whole time. So I think that was one of the major reasons why I cramped there. It was a lot cooler as well. It's about 5 degrees or something like that. And then obviously coming into this one, I had sodium every 30 minutes, like I said. And I also had a 40-gram gel 40 grams of carbs gel as opposed to a 20-gram carb gel. For me, that was definitely felt like it helped a lot more. I'm obviously a bit of a heavier runner, so having a lot more carbs, I feel like definitely benefited me. I was having a 40-gram gel every around sort of 7.5 to 8K, which was around sort of every 30 minutes, based off the pace that I was running at. So it ended up being about 80 grams of carbs an hour, which, like I said, is obviously quite good. I think anywhere from sort of 70 to 100, I think, is pretty standard, I would guess, or pretty good. So yeah, to be able to get 80, I was really happy with that, and really like stomached it really well. I didn't have any gut issues or stitches or anything like that pretty much the whole time. So I was really happy with that. as well. And in terms of what I think I would improve on, or what I do look to improve on, the first thing, based off of trying to figure out what my cramps are for, I think potentially one factor still could be the heat, or like some sort of like sodium related issue or sweat related issue. Obviously in Manchester, like I said, I cramped but I didn't have sodium. Here I had sodium but it was hotter, so it could still be some sort of sodium imbalance or something like that in my body, or electrolyte imbalance, sorry, in my body. But I think that one of the main things that I would look to do is build on my leg strength a little bit more. I sort of came into this build thinking that I had quite good leg strength, coming from more of like a strength training background. So I dropped it right the way down to just one lower body strength session each week, which was probably a bit more just like maintenance work for pretty much the whole block. So moving into this sort of off season, I've got a High Rocks event, and also we'll be doing a lot of strength training in addition to just training for High Rocks as well in general. So I'm hoping that will build a lot of leg strength, a bit more volume and stuff like that within the gym. And then going into my next marathon block, I'm going to look to do 2 lower sort of S&C days. And I think that hopefully that will have a massive benefit in sort of how my legs are able to cope with the demands of a marathon, as well as how I am aerobically as well. And then the second thing would probably be my taper. So I did a 3-week taper gradually. I sort of dropped it by about 10 to 15% in the first week, and then about 30 to 40% in the second week, and then it was about a 60% drop in the final week or race week before obviously the race day. So with that, I feel like potentially it might have been a little bit too long for me. I know some people benefit more from 3, some people benefit more from 2, or some even less. But I think that moving into my next block as well, I will probably stick to a 2-week taper. So, but these are all sort of things that you learn from a marathon. Like I said, I've only really raced properly 2, and I'm already starting to get some really good information and value out of doing these. So I know what I'm looking to improve on. And yeah, so for the next couple of weeks, I've got a few like 5K and 10K races, which I'm looking to build on my previous PBs, which I got around this time last year. So incorporating a bit more speed work, which will be nice after sort of marathon specific work for quite a long time. Then, like I said, I move into my High Rocks, and then straight after my High Rocks is when I will start my Rotterdam build. So Rotterdam, I would like to get around 2:43, but obviously it's a long time before my prep starts. So I will have more of a clear idea of sort of where I'm at physically, obviously closer to the time. But yeah, before that, just going to sort of each week, just basically plan my speed sessions, and then the volume will sort of come as and where I feel like I can fit in what my sort of body's feeling like. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, because I did put quite a lot of pressure on myself during my marathon blocks. I want to just have a bit of time to be able to sort of pick and choose. I'll still keep it relatively higher, just because I feel like I can cope with it quite well now. But yeah, apart from that, really good marathon, really recommend it to anyone looking to get in. I just applied for a ballot and was able to get in, so hopefully a lot of you, if you'll be able to apply, will be able to get in for the ballot as well. It's a wicked race, it's a really cool city, we really enjoyed it. But yeah, so moving on from here, I'll start to record sort of weekly videos of my training. Obviously I think it will look quite interesting now, with sort of different style of training in terms of my runs, with like 5K specific work, 10K specific work. And then obviously I'll be starting to throw in some High Rock sessions. So sort of just weekly recaps with some like eating and what I eat and stuff like that in like my off seasons will be sort of what I look to do next. But yeah, if you obviously like these last couple of videos, then give it a like, and I will look to do more in the future when I start my next build.